My kids battled with the elf on a shelf in the month of December. It was sort of like Home Alone, but with two kids versus a villain elf. By the time Scott brought the elf home, I had already survived 7 Christmases as a mother and considered myself reasonably battle-hardened. I had assembled toys at 2 a.m. using nothing but sheer will, determination, and a butter knife. I had wrapped presents while hiding in the laundry room, so the children wouldn't sense what I was doing and appear suddenly for a peek. I had stepped on Legos in the dark and lived to tell the tale more than once. What I had not prepared for was surveillance culture. "It's called Elf on the Shelf," Scott announced one evening in early December, holding up a small box proudly and with a grin. "All the kids have them." I looked at the picture on the box, red suit, painted smile, and creepy eyes. "What does it do?" I asked. Scott smiled again. "It watches the kids and reports back to Santa." From the hallway, 2 heads appeared in the doorway. Leo was 7 and recently had grown suspicious of everything since learning that adults sometimes avoid the full truth. Maisie, 5, was still soft around the edges between reality and imagination. Clutching her beloved stuffed rabbit, she gave her dad an unwavering stare. "The elf watches us?" Maisie asked. "Well," Scott said lightly, "only to see if you're being good." Leo narrowed his eyes. "How does it move?" "It doesn't," Scott said, "not when you're watching." The first night, Scott put the elf, who the kids named Jingles, on the mantel. It sat there perfectly still, watching us as we all sat on the couch. The next day, the kids kept glancing quickly at it over breakfast, trying to catch it moving. It was like Toy Story. They thought if they looked fast enough, they'd catch Jingles in the act. "I think it's just a toy," Leo declared. Maisie argued. "But what if it isn't?" Scott winked at me behind their backs. I raised an eyebrow. He shrugged. A bit later in the kitchen, he murmured, "It's harmless fun." The second night, the elf moved to the top of the fridge, and the third night, he was dangling from a curtain rod like a tiny festive acrobat. By night 4, Maisie refused to go downstairs alone. "He goes everywhere," she whined, clutching my pajama shirt. "He knows the whole house." "Sweetheart," I said, stroking her hair, "he's just a toy. Daddy moves him." She considered this. "But how does Daddy know where to put him?" I shot Scott a look from the top of the stairs. He grinned and said, "Elf magic." Maybe I should have intervened then. Scott was having fun in that very specific dad way, where fun means escalating something until someone cries, and then he insists that no one should be crying because it's funny. The notes started the following week. The first was taped to Leo's door. "Dear Leo, Santa saw your room was messy. Jingles." Leo brought it to me unimpressed. "Dad wrote this." "Yeah," I said quickly. "Daddy's handwriting is distinctive." I overheard the kids talking about the elf. I just caught a snippet while cooking dinner. And that night, Maisie asked if Santa could see her in the bathtub. I said firmly, No. Santa is very respectful." When I reported this to Scott later, he laughed again. "Relax, it's just pretend." I didn't laugh back. The kids were clearly not enjoying this as much as Scott, and no matter how many times I told them it was Daddy moving Jingles, they didn't fully believe me. Leo did mostly. Maisie wasn't all that reassured, and it felt like the more I tried to comfort them, the less they seemed to believe me. Things escalated when Scott discovered AI videos. "I made something really cool," he said one night, far too proud. He called the kids downstairs and gathered them around his phone. The video showed the elf, our elf, Jingles, standing on the kitchen counter, and then unmistakably it moved. It took a step and waved. Maisie screamed. Leo swore. My sweet little boy, who only used the word darn on rare occasions, dropped the F-bomb. Leo yelled, "That's not real!" "But Jingles waved. You saw it," Scott argued. Maisie sobbed, crawling into my lap. "Daddy used a computer trick," I told them, shooting Scott a look, one of those enough is enough looks. "Isn't it awesome?" Scott said. "Technology." "Technology is canceled," I announced, "forever." Scott looked genuinely confused. "It's harmless. They'll laugh about it later." "They are 5 and 7, I hissed. "Later is a long way away." The night Maisie came to me was the night the elf went too far. I was half asleep when I felt her climb into bed and reach for me. "Mama," she half cried, "I don't want the elf to live here anymore." I pulled her close. "What happened?" "He was in my room," she said. "He was on my bookshelf. He was watching me and Mrs. Bunny." I felt something ancient and feral rise in my chest. "He is not allowed in your room," I said. "But he was there," she said miserably. "I don't like Jingles. I don't want him to live here anymore." And that was it. The next morning, I confronted Scott in the kitchen while the kids watched cartoons. "She's scared," I said. "You need to stop this." Scott shrugged and frowned. "She'll get over it." "She's 5." He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped when Leo walked in, holding a crumpled piece of paper. "Is this from the elf?" Leo asked. The note read, "I saw you whisper with Maisie. Santa doesn't like secrets." Scott chuckled. Leo did not. That night, after their bedtime, I heard murmuring coming from Leo's room. Not the normal I can't sleep visiting, which happened from time to time. The tone sounded strategic and urgent. I paused outside Leo's door. "We have to get him," Leo said. "Put him in the bag," Maisie said. "The trash bag," Leo agreed. "Outside, right where the raccoons live." I covered my mouth to keep from giggling. Maisie sounded unsure. "Will Santa be mad?" "He can't be mad if the elf is gone," Leo said reasonably. "I don't think Santa wants us to be scared anymore. He's a jolly nice man, and Jingles is scary." I backed away quietly. In the morning, the elf was gone. Scott noticed immediately. "Where's Jingles?" he asked. The kids were just leaving the breakfast table and surely heard him but said nothing. I sipped my coffee and enjoyed about 10 full seconds of peace until Scott took the garbage out. He came back in holding the elf, slightly damp, stuffed in a grocery bag. "Found him," he announced. He put Jingles on the counter, kissed me goodbye, and went to work. Maisie gasped when she came back into the kitchen. I just hadn't had time to snatch Jingles and hide him. Leo, coming in behind her, groaned. "Unbelievable!" That afternoon, the kids went upstairs and began planning their next move. It was honestly entertaining hearing them plan the downfall of Jingles the elf. The war had begun. What followed was the most ridiculous, joyful arms race of my parenting career. The kids hid the elf in a winter boot. Scott taped him to the ceiling fan. The kids wrapped him thoroughly in toilet paper like a mummy so that he couldn't watch them. Scott staged an escape involving a trail of toilet paper bits. The kids built a Lego jail around him. Scott replied with a note. "Nice try." I stayed out of it mostly. The kids were spending time together and no longer seemed scared. Instead, they were determined. I had 2 little Kevin McAllisters in my house. The notes changed, saying things like, "You two are a good team," or "Santa loves teamwork." Scott made a few more AI videos, but they stopped being scary and started being silly. Jingles slipping on a banana peel, Jingles having fallen asleep inside a cereal box. Maisie stopped crying and started giggling. Leo started trying to outsmart Jingles instead of arguing against the existence of elves logically. One night I heard them laughing hysterically outside, and I found them crouched by the tree. "He thinks we're scared," Leo said, "but we're not." Maisie clapped. "We're brave." I smiled and backed away. Jingles was hanging upside down with a note written in crayon taped to him. I couldn't read it at the time, but later I saw it. "Give up or Jingles goes to the cat dessert." It made me laugh. Leo had written it as dessert when he meant desert. The cat desert was in fact the litter box. On Christmas Eve, the elf was gone again, but this time Scott didn't bring him back. Instead, there was a final note on the mantel. "Thank you for the fun. Santa says you did great. Time to go home. Let's do this again next year." The kids hugged each other after I read it and jumped up and down celebrating. They cheered and Leo announced, "Next year we do even better." Maisie hugged me and Leo did a little victory dance. Later, when the house was quiet, I found Scott in the living room holding the elf. Too much? He asked. A bit, I said. He nodded. Worth it, though. Yeah, I said, but next year? He smiled. You heard them. Next year they're going to be more prepared. We both laughed and went through the photos of Jingles all around the house. We kept the notes to the kids and from the kids and put them and Jingles into a box in our closet, ready for the kids to outwit him again next year. If you enjoyed this reading, please hit like and subscribe so you don't miss future stories. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. This has been Tales by Rachel, where we breathe life into every story.